What are some of the URL best practices, which will be super helpful for folks that are just starting a website or looking to reassess their current URL structure?
So a lot of these URL best practices are pretty straightforward. Like we were mentioning, it's really important to just make sure you're providing a positive user experience. So as long as your URLs read very clearly, you're oftentimes going to be utilizing the best practices naturally. Some of those are just making sure that if you have multiple words in your slug, so for example, if you're writing a blog on best SEO practices, you'll want to have a dash separating those words, best SEO and then practices. Oftentimes it's a dash instead of an underscore. So I would remember to use that instead. It just makes it easier to read for users, and it also makes it a little easier to read for Google as well. The next one is just utilizing important keywords. So this doesn't always happen, but if there is a primary keyword in the meta title, it makes it very easy to incorporate that keyword into the URL as well. And it just makes it easy for people who are searching for that topic to just understand that that is what that page is covering. The next one is not to use only numbers in the URL. Almost every page on your website is going to have some sort of content or some sort of title on the page. So there's really never many reasons why you would want to have just numbers in your URL. And then just making sure that you're using that secure protocol as a best practice. Avoiding dates in your URL is a big one. Dates oftentimes for something like WordPress might automatically end up in your URL. You'll want to avoid that as it doesn't really add any sort of additional value to that URL or to that user. It just ends up making it a super long URL and just kind of confusing. And the last thing is just making sure that those URLs are simple and easy to read. So sometimes that might even mean getting rid of stop words such as the or and, because you're still going to get across the same meaning.
Yep. Yeah, really good best practices here. And just speaking from experience with some of the clients that we work with, I mean, it's amazing. There are websites out there that don't have the secure protocol, that are still HTTP. We ran across one on a client within this past year that we helped power and are continuing to help power their marketing. And we're shocked that they did not have secure protocol when Google said even years ago that that will impact ranking. So always make sure you have that. And dates, yeah, it's so funny that some WordPress sites, it's just automatically defaulted to include the date, and not necessarily, and actually can really backfire, because let's say you have an excellent blog post that is pretty much almost timeless, or has a pretty long shelf life. If you have a date, and let's say it's 2 years old, it almost just puts a negative perception on that content, because then folks will be like, oh, is this even relevant to me anymore? So don't have that. And then, as you mentioned, just keep things as clean as possible. And this can even get into the overall structure of your site, of if you have different types of categories, you could have the domain category / any type of pages that you're looking for. So it's always good just to really take a few steps back, understand the overall architecture of your website, and making sure that the URLs are following these best practices.